Hi, I'm Movie Man. I'm an octopus who reviews movies. And today's review is going to be on So, what did I think of this movie? In my opinion, this film was average. Yeah, I'm gonna be honest with you guys. This was a rather average movie for me. In fact, to be honest, this is actually the first average film that I have seen all year so far. Like, there was things that I liked about this movie. There were things that I didn't like about it as well. But overall, it was just average. That's why I thought this film. It was average. So, let's start this off with the cinematography. The cinematography in this film is actually pretty good. Like, I think for the most part, this film is shot pretty okay in my opinion. I think that there are some genuinely decent shots in this movie. I mean, like, there were, like, now I'll admit that some of the boxing scenes were, there were some points where they were kind of shot a little bit funny, but aside from that, though, the cinematography wasn't too bad. Now for the pace in this movie. The pace in this film is honestly just not very good. Now, this is a pretty long movie. This film is 2 hours and 13 minutes long. Now, okay, I can see why this movie is as long as it is. And yeah, like, I can definitely understand why, alright, because I mean, you know, with this movie, like, being based on a true story and everything, it would kind of make sense for the film to be like over 2 hours long. So, yeah, I think that the film, it has an alright runtime, but however, the way that the film makes use of its runtime isn't very good. Like, I mean, I'm gonna be honest with you guys. Like, with this film being 2 hours 30 minutes long, you do kind of feel the runtime alright, I'll admit. But the thing is, though, I'll be honest, for a movie that's just a bit over 2 hours long, this movie actually kinda rushed, to be honest. I don't know, it's just, there were a lot of scenes throughout this film where I kind of felt like the movie was sort of, rushing through the scenes and stuff. And I'm gonna be honest, I did not like it very much. I think that the film really could have gone at a slower pace. So, yeah, the pace in this movie I was not a huge fan of. The sounds and music in this film was fine. This movie, it doesn't have a terrible soundtrack. But with that being said, it's nothing amazing. Then there's the editing. The editing for the most part isn't too bad. I'll admit that there is some kind of weird editing at times, but I think for the most part the editing is alright. That's the characters.
Sometimes it feels about the same. Hey, fella, come on and enjoy yourself.
Power company said we never paid the bill.
Really? There's only two things I know how to do. That's box and preach. And preaching won't pay the bills.
We have the main character himself, the title character of the movie, Big George Foreman. I'm gonna be honest guys about the title being called Big George Foreman. I understand why why this movie is called Big George Foreman, because he's known as Big George, alright. But I'm gonna be honest though, it's only when the film kind of reaches the third act when he becomes Big George Foreman. Because throughout the movie's first two acts, he is not Big George Foreman. I remember to myself, geez, this guy was known as Big George Foreman because he's not a very big guy. So yeah, it's only when the film reaches the third act when he becomes known as Big George Foreman. Now again, I get why they called the movie that, but however, honestly, in my opinion, if I had to come up with the title for this movie, I think I personally would have just titled it George Foreman. Or just simply Foreman, because, Big George Foreman doesn't make any sense. And yeah, I know that this movie is actually technically called Big George Foreman, the miraculous story of the once and future heavyweight champion of the world. Yeah, I'm just going to refer to this movie as Big George Foreman because, no, I'm sorry, that title is just way too long. That's actually even worse. If they're going to call it Big George Foreman, they should just simply keep it as Big George Foreman. They don't need that part at the end. So I'm just going to refer to it as Big George Foreman because, well, that part at the end is just really unneeded. Okay, I've been rambling on about the title of this movie for too long. Now let's actually talk about its title character himself. Now obviously, George Foreman's a real person. He's a former boxer, 74 years old now. This movie's portrayal of George Foreman it's not a terrible portrayal. I think it's, you know, pretty accurate, but, in my opinion, my problem with him, with this was interpretation of George Foreman, well, like, it more or less has to do with the actor who plays George Foreman in this movie, Khris Davis. Now, in my opinion, Khris Davis, he wasn't, terrible as George Foreman or anything, but with that being said, though, I do think he could have been a bit better, honestly. I don't know, it's just, maybe it was just the script, but the way that he was in certain scenes, I felt like there was just that extra oomph that was missing, his performance wasn't terrible or anything, it really needed that extra oomph to it, I felt. And then, when the film star Ash comes around and he becomes Big George Foreman, they do edit him quite a bit, and I'll be honest, it actually looked pretty weird in some scenes. Like, especially in scenes where he's, in the ring and stuff, I found it very weird. Now, I won't really talk too much about any of the other characters in this movie, but, they're all, people that Foreman meets throughout his life, and, they all play a certain role in his life and stuff, and, I mean, the characters weren't terrible, and the actors who played them weren't terrible either. But in my opinion, I think that the script just could have been a bit better, if they'd been given a better scripts, then maybe they just could have done better, in my opinion, of the cast of characters, the two standouts really are Muhammad Ali and Doc Brazos. First off, Muhammad Ali, I love the real life Muhammad Ali. The dude was literally the legend, And in my opinion, this movie actually had a decent portrayal of him. They found an actor who actually really resembles Muhammad Ali, and not to mention as well, that actor, can't think of his name, I will actually give him props, because in my opinion, he actually did a genuinely really good job as Muhammad Ali. And then there is George Foreman's trainer, Doc Brazos. And in my opinion, he was pretty good, alright. I thought that Forrest Whitaker did a genuinely pretty good job of the performance. So of the cast, I think the two of them were really the standouts. Now there's the film's plot. So, obviously this movie is based on a true story. It's based on the life of George Foreman and everything. About his career as a boxer, how it all fell apart, and how he rose back up to the top. And yeah, like, I mean, like, the thing about this movie is it showed signs of being good. Like, I was watching film throughout all these scenes. I know they kind of rushed a bit, but I noticed alright that I think the movie did definitely have potential to be a very good film. Like, I could see the potential. The potential was definitely there. Like, and the thing is, potential it's actually a word that I don't really use very much. I don't know if you know this, but that word potential, I actually don't use that word very often because, well, the thing is, technically everything has potential, you know. But I just feel like all the scenes in this movie, while they weren't terrible or anything, I feel that they could have been a bit better, you know, if they had just, you know, gone that extra oomph to them. Like, that's the big word I'm using in this video is oomph. Like, if this, I know it kind of sounds a little stupid, but if this movie just had that extra oomph to it, then I feel like it could have done a better job at telling this story. And then there's the narrative structure, which in my opinion is honestly pretty weak. Like, the thing is, obviously the film, as I mentioned, the plot of this movie is about George Foreman, how he became a boxer, how it all fell apart, and how he rose back up to the top. And yeah, you've got your setup right there for your plot, but of course that can't just be the film. You have to really go over his life and stuff, his family, his personal life and everything, and like, this we didn't do a terrible job at telling these events. Like, I mean, it very much established all of these things, like how after he quit boxing he became a preacher, you know, because his mother was a firm believer in God, and how he fell out with his wife and stuff, his first wife. But with that being said, though, I feel like this film just really could have showed a bit more of it, in my opinion. In my opinion, I feel like this movie just should have shown a bit more of these scenes, because this film, it really rushed, honestly, through all of these scenes, and like, in my opinion, like, I mean, it has, like, the potential is definitely there, but effectively it should have done more, honestly. It should have, you know, gone the extra mile, in my opinion. So overall, Big George Foreman is not a bad movie by any means, because, you know, there's a lot there. There's an idea for a good retelling of George Foreman's life, and I mean, there's the cinematography is not bad, and the acting isn't from. I mean, the acting is mostly fine, but Muhammad Ali and Doc Broad, and the performances from their two actors are quite really the standout for this film. But in my opinion, though, this movie it really could have been better, in my opinion. Like, I know I said earlier that I didn't mind the fact this movie was 2 hours and 13 minutes long, but in my opinion, I think if I was making an adaptation of George Foreman's life, I think I actually would have made the film a bit longer, just so that we could have some more scenes, and really go into all these scenes a lot more, and also I would have given these actors a better scripts, that just doesn't rush through anything. I wouldn't have actually rushed through anything. I would have taken it at a bit of a slower pace, and I would have also really improved on the dialogue. But the dialogue wasn't terrible, but I felt that it really could be improved at certain times. So I think I would give these actors, this cast, I would give them a better script to work with. And I'd get them to really just go with that extra bit with their performances, because as I have said numerous times on this review, if this movie had just has that extra oomph to it, it could have been a lot better, honestly. So yeah, this movie is not terrible. It is a fine movie. It's not a terrible film, and if you're a fan of George Foreman and boxing, there's a good chance you'll enjoy this movie. But in my opinion, it's not a terrible film. There's some good things to like about it. It really should have had the extra oomph to make it better. In terms of the pace, the acting, and just the general script, it needed the extra oomph. So, hopefully in years to come, we might get another George Foreman film adaptation that does a better job than this film. So while this movie is not terrible, it definitely needs that extra oomph from the slower pace, better script, slightly better acting, and just a much better script altogether could have made this movie a higher score than what I'm going to give it. So with that, I'm going to give Big George Foreman a 5 out of 10. So with that, I'll see you guys next time, and bye.